Christmas, and tonight's special story is a short play of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. As condensed by himself, and even further, much further, and even further than that, in fact, condensed by Thomas Hutchinson. Presented by the absolutely fabulous, never imitatable Dennis and Apple families. Enjoy.
I would say one of my favorite Christmas memories, I think I was about 4 years old, and I really wanted this doll named Pamela, and she would talk to you if you pressed her eyes and her ears. And my parents have it on videotape. I come running out of my grandparents' house from the bedroom where I was staying, and I saw the doll, and I immediately said, "Pamela, you found me!" That's the name of the doll. And instead of "Pamela, I found you," I said, "Pamela, you found me." And so that was constantly said to me by my parents and my family ever since I was 4 growing up. But I think it was just a joyful moment of, connecting with something that you wanted, and that it just was a lot of fun and brought joy to your life. So anytime I see anybody in my family, I say, "Hi, you found me." And it's just a fun greeting that we have. And it all started over a doll that could talk to you.
Once upon a time, upon a Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house.
A Merry Christmas, Uncle.
It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew.
Bah! Humbug.
Christmas a humbug, Uncle. You don't mean that, I'm sure.
I do. Out upon Merry Christmas. If I had my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding. He should.
Uncle!
Nephew, keep Christmas in your way and let me keep it in mine.
Keep it, but you don't keep it.
Let me leave it alone then. Much good may it do you, much good it has ever done you.
I have always thought of Christmas time as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. And therefore, Uncle, though has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, I believe it has done me good and will do me good. And I say, God bless it.
Good afternoon.
I'll keep my Christmas humor to the last. So a Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year.
Good afternoon.
The nephew left the room without an angry word, but the clerk, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, had let 2 other people in.
At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, we should make some slight provision for the poor and the destitute, who suffer greatly at the present time. A few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink, and means of warmth. What shall I put you down for?
Nothing.
You wish to be anonymous.
I wish to be left alone. Since you ask me what I wish, that is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas, and I can't afford to make idle people merry. I help to support the prisons and the workhouses. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there.
Many can't go there, and many would rather die.
If they would rather die, they'd better do it.
The hour of shutting up the counting house arrived. Scrooge took his melancholy dinner in his melancholy tavern and went home to bed.
Now, it is a fact that there was nothing at all particular about the knocker on the door of this house, except that it was very large. And yet, Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker, not a knocker, but Marley's face. Marley's face, with a dismal light about it, like a bad lobster in a dark cellar. As Scrooge looked at this, it was a knocker again. He said,
Ah, that's it.
and closed the door with a bang. The sound resounded throughout the house like thunder. Every room above and every crack in the wine merchant's cellar below appeared to have a separate peal of echoes of its own. Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes. He fastened the door and walked across the hall and up the stairs.
Up Scrooge went, not caring a button for its being very dark. Darkness is cheap, and Scrooge liked it. Quite satisfied, he closed his door and locked himself in. Double locked himself in, which was not his custom. Thus secured against surprise, he put on his dressing gown and slippers and his nightcap, and sat down before the very low fire to take his gruel.
As he threw his head back in the chair, his glance happened upon a bell, a disused bell that hung in the room. It was with great astonishment and a great strange dread that, as he looked, he saw this bell begin to swing. Soon it rang out loudly, and so did every bell in the house.
This was succeeded by a clanking noise deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain over the casks of the wine merchant's cellar. Then he heard a noise much louder on the floor below, and then coming up the stairs, and then coming straight toward his door, and it came through the heavy door.
And a specter passed into the room before his eyes, and upon its coming in, the dying flame leapt as though it cried,
I know him. That's Marley's ghost.
What do you want with me?
Much.
Who are you?
Ask me who I was.
Who were you then?
In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley.
The ghost sat down on the opposite side of the fireplace, as if he were quite used to it.
You don't believe in me.
I don't.
Why do you doubt your senses?
Because a little thing affects them. You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato. There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are.
The spirit raised a frightful cry.
Mercy! Dreadful apparition! Why do you trouble me? Why do spirits walk the earth, and why do they come to me?
It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk among his fellow men and travel far and wide. If that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. I cannot rest. I cannot stay. I cannot linger anywhere. My spirit never walked beyond our counting house. Mark me! In life, my spirit never roved beyond our money-changing hole. Weary journeys lie before me now.
Scrooge was very much dismayed to hear what the specter was going on about at this rate, and he began to quake exceedingly.
I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate. You will be haunted by 3 spirits. Expect the first tomorrow night when the bell tolls 1. Expect the second on the next night at the same hour. The third upon the next night when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more!
Scrooge tried to say humbug, but stopped at the first syllable, and being from the emotion he had undergone, or the fatigues of the day, or his glimpses of the invisible world, or the conversation of the ghost, or the lateness of the hour, he went straight to bed. without undressing, and fell asleep on the instant.
Deck the halls with boughs of holly.
Fa la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly. Fa la 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 la.
Don we now our gay apparel.
Fa la 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 la. Troll the ancient Yuletide carol. Fa la 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 la. When Scrooge awoke, the church clock tolled a deep, dull, hollow, melancholy 1. Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn aside by a strange figure, like a child.
Are you the spirit, sir, whose coming was foretold to me?
I am.
Who and what are you?
I am the ghost of Christmas past.
As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall and stood in the busy thoroughfares of the city. It was made plain enough by the dressings of the shops that here, too, it was Christmas time. The ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door and asked Scrooge if he knew it.
Know it? I apprenticed here.
They went in, and to the sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig, sitting behind such a high desk that, if he had been but 2 inches taller, he must have knocked his head against the ceiling. Scrooge cried in great excitement.
Why, it's old Fezziwig. Bless his heart, it's Fezziwig alive again.
Yo-ho there. Ebenezer, Dick.
A living and moving picture of Scrooge's former self, a young man came briskly in, accompanied by his fellow prentice.
Yo-ho, my boys. No more work tonight. Christmas Eve. Dick, Christmas, Ebenezer. Let's have the shutters up before a man can say Jack Robinson. Clear away, my lads, and let us have lots of room here.
Clear away. There was nothing they wouldn't have cleared away, or couldn't have cleared away, with old Fezziwig looking on. It was done in a minute. The warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. In came a fiddler with a music book, and went up to the lofty desk and made an orchestra of it and tuned like 50 stomach aches. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast smile. In came 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. In they all came, one after another, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly, some pushing, some pulling. In they all came, anyhow and everyhow. Away they all went, 20 couples at once, hands half round and back again the other way, down the middle and up again, round and round, old top couple always turning up in the wrong place. When the clock struck 11, this ball broke up. Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig, shaking hands with every person as he or she went out, wished him or her a Merry Christmas.
A small matter, to make these silly folks so full of gratitude. He has spent but a few pounds of your money, 3 or 4 perhaps. Is that so much that he deserves this praise?
It isn't that, Spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our services a pleasure or a toil. Say that his power lies in words and looks, in things impossible to add and count them up. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune. Spirit, remove me from this place. Haunt me no longer.
As he struggled with the spirit, he was conscious of being exhausted and overcome by an irresistible drowsiness, and further, of being in his own bedroom. He had barely time to reel to bed before he sank into a heavy sleep.
ceiling were so hung with living green that it looked a perfect grove. The leaves of holly, mistletoe, and ivy reflected back the light, and such a mighty blaze went roaring up the chimney. Heaped upon the floor to form some kind of a throne were turkeys, geese, great joints of meat, pigs, long wreaths of sausages, mince pies, plum puddings, barrels of oysters, red-hot chestnuts, cherry-cheeked apples, juicy oranges, luscious pears, great bowls of punch, and immense 12th cakes. Upon this couch there sat a giant, glorious to see, who bore a glowing torch.
Come in, and know me better, man. I am the ghost of Christmas present. Look upon me. You have never seen the like of me before. Touch my robe.
Scrooge did as he was told and held it fast. The room and its contents all vanished instantly, and they stood in the city streets upon a snowy Christmas morning. Scrooge and the ghost passed on, invisible, straight to Scrooge's clerks. And on the threshold of the door, the spirit smiled and stopped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling with the sprinkling of his torch.
What has got Father then? And your brother, Tiny Tim?
There's Father coming.
In came Bob, his threadbare clothes darned up and brushed to look seasonable, and Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Alas for Tiny Tim, he bore a little crutch and had his limbs supported by an iron frame.
And how did little Tim behave?
As good as gold and better. Somehow he gets thoughtful, sitting by himself so much, and thinks the strangest things you have ever heard. He told me, coming home, that he hoped the people saw him in the church, because he was a cripple, and it might be pleasant to them to remember, upon a Christmas day, who made lame beggars walk and blind men see.
Master Peter and the two young Cratchits went to fetch the goose, with which they soon returned in high procession.
Martha made the gravy ready beforehand in a little saucepan, hissing hot. Master Peter mashed the potatoes with incredible vigor. Miss Belinda sweetened up the applesauce and dusted the hot plates. Bob took Tiny Tim beside him in a tiny corner at the table, and the two young Cratchits set chairs for everybody, not forgetting themselves, and crammed spoons into their mouths, lest they should shriek for goose before it was their turn to be helped. At last the dishes were set on, and grace was said. It was succeeded by a breathless pause, as Bob, looking slowly along the carving knife, prepared to plunge it into the beast. But when he did, and when the long-expected gush of stuffing issued forth, one murmur of delight arose all round the board.
Oh!
And even Tiny Tim, excited by the two young Cratchits, bent on the table with a handle of his knife and feebly cried,
Hurrah!
But now, the plates being changed by Miss Belinda, Martha left the room alone to take the pudding up and bring it in. Smiling proudly with the pudding, like a speckled cannonball, so hard and firm, blazing in half of a quartern of ignited brandy, and bedight with Christmas holly stuck into the top.
Oh, a wonderful pudding.
At last, the dinner was all done, the cloth was cleared, and the hearth swept, and the fire made up. Then all the Cratchit family drew around the hearth, while the chestnuts on the fire sputtered and cracked noisily. They were happy, grateful, pleased with one another, and contented with the time. And when they faded, and looked happier yet in the bright sparklings of the spirit's torch at parting, Scrooge had an eye upon them, and especially on Tiny Tim. to the last.
But the whole scene passed off, and he and the spirit were again upon their travels. Much they saw, and far they traveled, and many homes they visited, but always with a happy end. Suddenly, as they stood together upon the open place, the bell struck 12. Scrooge looked about him for the ghost, and saw it no more. As the last stroke ceased to vibrate, he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and, lifting up his eyes, beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming like a mist along the ground towards him.
Ghost of the future, I fear you more than any spectre I have seen. Will you not speak to me?
It gave him no reply. The hand was pointed straight before them.
Lead on, lead on. The night is waning fast, and it's precious time to me. I know. Lead on, spirit.
They scarcely seemed to enter the city, for the city rather seemed to spring up about them. But there they were, in the heart of it amongst the merchants. The spirit stopped beside one little knot of businessmen. Observing that the hand was pointed to them, Scrooge advanced to listen to their talk.
I don't know much about it either way, but I only know he's dead.
When did he die?
Last night, I believe.
What has done with his money?
I haven't heard. Company, perhaps. He hasn't left it to me, that's all I know.
The scene had changed, and now he almost touched a bare, uncurtained bed. A pale light rising in the outer air fell straight upon this bed, and on it, unwatched, unwept, uncared for, was the body of this unknown man.
Spirit, let me see some tenderness connected with the death, or this dark chamber spirit will be forever present to me.
The ghost conducted him to poor Cratchit's house, the dwelling he had visited before, and found everyone seated round the fire.
Quiet, very quiet. The noisy little Cratchits were as still as statues in one corner, and sat looking up at Peter, who had a book before him. The ladies were engaged in needlework, but surely they were very quiet.
Martha laid her work upon the table and put her hand up to her face.
The color hurts my eyes. They're better now again. It makes them weak by candlelight. I wouldn't show weak eyes to Father when he comes home. For the world, it must be near his time.
Past it, rather. I think he walked a little slower than he used these few last evenings.
I have known him walk with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder, very fast indeed. But he was very light to carry, and Father loved him so that it was no trouble. And there is Father at the door.
Bob came in. His tea was ready for him, and they all tried who should help him to it most. Then the two young Cratchits got up on his knee and laid each child a little cheek up against his face, as if they said,
Don't mind it, Father. Don't be grieved.
Bob was very cheerful with them and spoke pleasantly to all the family. He looked at the work upon the table and praised everyone.
You went today, then?
Yes, I wish you all could have gone. It would have done you good to see how green a place it is. But you'll see it often. I promised him that we would walk there on Sunday. My little child. My little child.
Spectre, something informs me that our parting moment is at hand. I know it, but I know not how. Tell me what man that was, with the covered face whom we saw lying dead.
The ghost of Christmas yet to come conveyed him to a dismal, wretched, ruinous churchyard. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one. Scrooge crept towards it, trembling as he went, and following the finger, read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge.
Am I that man who lay upon the bed? No, spirit. No, spirit. Hear me. I am not the man I was. I will not be the man I must have been. Why show me this if I am past all hope? Assure me that I may change these shadows you have shown me by an altered life. I will honor Christmas in my heart, and try to keep it all the year. Oh, tell me I may sponge away the writing on this stone.
Holding up his hand in one last prayer to have his fate reversed, he saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost.
The bedpost was his own. The bed was his own. The room was his own. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own to make amends in. He was checked in as transports by the churches, ringing out the loudest peals he had ever heard.
Running to the window, he opened it and put out his head. No fog, no mist, no night. Clear, bright, stirring, golden day.
What's today?
Cried Scrooge, calling downward to a boy in Sunday clothes.
Eh?
What's today, my fine fellow?
Today? Why, it's Christmas Day.
It's Christmas Day. I haven't missed it. Hello, my fine fellow.
Hello.
Do you know the poulterers in the next street but one at the corner?
I should hope I did.
Ah, an intelligent boy, a remarkable boy. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there? Not the little prize turkey, the big one.
What, the one as big as me?
What a delightful boy. It's a pleasure to talk with him. Yes, my buck.
It's hanging in there now.
Is it? Go and buy it.
What?
No, I am in earnest. Go and buy it and tell them to bring it here, that I may give them the direction where to take it. Come back with the man, and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes, and I'll give you half a crown.
The boy was off like a shot.
I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's. He shan't know who sends it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim.
Scrooge dressed himself all in his best, and at last got out into the streets. The people were by this time pouring forth, as he had seen them with the ghost of Christmas present. And walking with his hands behind him, Scrooge regarded everyone with a delightful smile. He looked so irresistibly pleasant, in a word, that 3 or 4 good-humored fellows said,
Good morning, sir.
He was early at the office the next morning. If he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming in late.
The clock struck 9. No Bob. 1/4 past. No Bob. Bob was a full 18.5 minutes behind his time.
Bob's hat was off before he opened the door. He was on his stool in a jiffy, driving away with his pen as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock.
Hello. What do you mean by coming here at this time of day?
I am very sorry, sir. I am behind my time.
You are? Yes, I think you are. Step this way, if you please. Now, I tell you what, my friend. I am not going to stand for this sort of thing any longer, and therefore, I'm about to raise your salary.
Bob trembled.
A Merry Christmas, Bob. A merrier Christmas, Bob, my good fellow, than I have given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavor to assist your struggling family.
Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all, and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other old city or town or borough in the good old world. Some people laughed to see it the alteration in him, but his own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well. May it be truly said of us, and all of us.
And so, as Tiny Tim observed,
God bless us, everyone.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Winter Branches by Margaret Whittemore. When winter trees grow weary, I lift my eyes on high and see the black trees standing, stripped clear against the sky. They stand there very silent, with the cold flushed sky behind. The little twigs flare beautiful and restful and kind. Clear-cut and certain, they rise with summer past. For all that trees can ever learn, they know now at last. Slim and black and wonderful, with all unrest gone by, the stripped tree boughs comfort me, drawn clear against the sky.